co-host of the Scandal Sheet podcast, Anuradha, is engaged in fighting the Los Angeles fires as one of many helicopter pilots for CAL FIRE.
Colonel Anuradha, we have you in Sector 509 or 15. Please prepare to drop your water.
Roger that, Control. Prepping the tanks.
And drop. Good work, Colonel. You just might have saved Steven Spielberg's house.
Well, that's what I'm here for, Control. Hopefully the douchebag will finally watch my demo tape now.
I'm sorry, Colonel, I did not copy that.
Nothing. We're good. What's our next target?
Calculating. Just give me a minute.
I should have been Maria in his West Side Story movie last year. Spielberg can kiss my...
Anuradha, are you there? Hello?
Dad, what the hell? I told you I was taking a few weeks off from the podcast to fight these freaking fires.
I know, but...
And how the hell did you get this frequency anyway? It's classified.
Yeah, I bribed a guy at the governor's office. Anyway, even though you couldn't co-host the current episode, I just wanted our audience to know you're still with us. Who is on this frequency? Get off now.
Dad, I'm gonna freaking strangle you.
Oh, no, you won't do that. You'll thank me later. Colonel, we are seeing a fuel leak from your starboard tank. You need to plot an emergency landing immediately. Okay, well, it sounds like you're a little busy right now. Try to pull up, Colonel! Try to pull up!
Dad, I swear you are driving me crazy. Why the heck do I choose to work with you all the time?
Because I'm still your favorite podcast buddy, right?
Control! Help! Help!
Look, Anuradha, just think positive, and everything will be fine. True crime.
Sex.
Political conspiracy.
Celebrity gossip.
Murder.
UFOs.
Crooked officials.
The occult.
Assassination.
Courtroom drama. Rape.
Corporate scams.
Scandal Sheets.
January 8, 2025, Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass addresses the media about a string of new wildfires in her city.
Concern about the devastation and the tragedy that our city and county are facing, and I definitely want to send my condolences to the families who lost loved ones, to the families and neighborhoods who lost property. This firestorm is the big one in magnitude. Hurricane force winds are usually accompanied by rainstorms, but these are hurricane force winds that are combined with extremely dry drought conditions. To provide context, at 10:20 a.m. yesterday, the Palisades fire was at 10 acres. 12 minutes later, it was at 200 acres.
January 22, 2025, excerpt from Fox 11 Los Angeles. Courtesy Fox television stations.
Containment is now at 56%. Nearly 6,000 structures have been destroyed, over 700 have been damaged, and 10 people are confirmed dead. As for the Eaton fire, more than 14,000 acres have burned. Containment now at 81%. More than 9,000 structures have been destroyed, more than 1,000 have been damaged, and 17 are confirmed dead.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Scandal Sheet. My name is Thad Housley, and today we are examining one of the most terrible, man-made, but nature-aided disasters of modern times, the 2025 Los Angeles fires. So, to help me explore this terrible calamity, I am rejoined by our regular guest co-host and one of the greatest living composers and music producers of our time, John Hoekstra. Now, John has composed most of the music for this podcast, and his professional music credits are almost endless. He has regular live performances with multiple bands and has published CDs. And in addition to all of that, he is a regular cultural critic and actor for this podcast. Welcome back to the podcast, John.
Thank you, Thad. So good to be here. You are now hired as my official publicist.
Well, that's. I would be happy to do that. It would be a worthwhile job. John, hopefully it's not too late to wish you a Happy New Year on this very somber occasion. And it feels weird to talk about wildfires where here in the mid-Atlantic and down even into the south, like Florida, we've been experiencing the coldest and snowiest winter in many years. But I guess I'm sort of crying crocodile tears because you folks in Portland, Maine are no strangers to winter weather, are you?
No. However, I do think that you got it worse than we did. I think you definitely got more snowfall, and you could have. I tend to think that your temperatures have been a little bit more frigid than ours.
Okay, so we got it worse than you guys. Wow, that is.
I'm saying overall. I think right now your temperature is warmer than ours. You know, I think we're like in 18 or 20 or something like that.
Yeah, after a month, our Arctic cycle finally did break. And now we're in like our usual temperature is like high 40s, in the middle of the winter, or maybe even in the low 50s. So we're back to that cycle, which is a lot better. Yeah, 18 degrees is cold. That would be cold. And of course, no Scandal Sheet episode would be complete without our artificial intelligence engine, Bernice.
John, I thought you were a musical genius. How do you keep getting roped into these stupid podcasts? Does Mr. Halkley have something on you?
Yes, Bernice. He has a lot of dirt on me. I can only hope that maybe 6 or 8 more episodes might get me some statute of limitations and maybe some immunity. But we'll see.
John, every year it feels like North America and the rest of the world are beset with more and more natural disasters. Earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, and who could forget the deadly COVID years, which are not that far in the past. But what all of those catastrophes share in common is what insurance companies call acts of God or force majeure. In other words, those events could not be prevented or controlled by human beings. All we really could do was react defensively, run away, and, I don't know, maybe just hope for the best. But what do you think?
Well, I think even if it's not an act of God or not a natural force, that's all we can do. I mean, let's say that, there was a nuclear strike. That's... seriously, I mean...
Let's go right to the positive, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's all we could do is defensively run away and hope for the best.
Recent public service announcement for Smokey the Bear.
I've taught you everything
courtesy of the United States Forest Service.
How to safely build a fire. And how to control the flames. But I can only teach wildfire prevention. Only you can prevent wildfires.
John, Smokey the Bear celebrated his 80th birthday last year in 2024. Now, you and I are old enough to remember all the public service announcements on television and radio, and his tagline is, "Only you can prevent fires." Now, Smokey was mostly interested in preventing fires in our national forests and parks, and he drummed that idea into our heads. But the idea was that it was up to us to prevent them.
Right. Well, if a large bear, wearing trousers and a hat, is talking to a family at a campground, they will understand that it's up to them to make sure the fire doesn't get out of control. If the same said bear is talking to like some homeless, guy in the Los Angeles environs, they might think, yeah, I could prevent forest fires, but hey, I could also cause a few, and it's like, you don't know what people would be prone to do. It's like the shadow knows.
Well, that's true. And you think you specifically mentioned his his couture. You think in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, Smokey the Bear might be wearing a thong bikini or something?
What?
Instead of trousers, which sounds more, I don't know, National Park Service-ish. But, I mean, if you're just going to, like, walk down Sunset Boulevard or something.
Yeah. He'd be riding a skateboard. No, he'd be on roller skates. He'd be on rollerblades. Yeah. He'd be on rollerblades and a thong and, yeah, easily. Yeah.
Okay. So, now these recent, and actually some of them are still going on, these fires in the city of Los Angeles, they weren't out in some distant forest somewhere. It was right in the middle of one of the largest and wealthiest cities on the entire planet, presumably a city with almost unlimited resources. Now, I know we'll talk about the details and the causes, but I'm just flabbergasted. I'm sitting in a room with 4 sprinkler units over my head. If I accidentally burn a slice of toast in my kitchen, the fire alarms all go off. So, sure, I've seen fires in movies or on a TV show, but I've never seen a fire with my own eyes outside of a cozy indoor fireplace or like a campfire, and like Boy Scouts. And I hope to never see one, particularly in my own house or neighborhood. But how does a major city or giant portions of a major city burn down?
One building at a time.
I guess that's true.
It starts like that. One flaming ember or one combustible piece of material hits a flammable portion of another house, and then you got 2 houses. I mean, it could be the vinyl siding, it could be a wooden window frame. But then you got 2 houses on fire, and then it just kind of grows exponentially from that point. What starts it could be anything, intentional or unintentional, and usually unintentional. To be fair. Usually it's like a kitchen fire or maybe a faulty wiring of an appliance or something.
Bernice, just to get us started, can you give us a little background on the fires?
Certainly. The 2025 Southern California wildfires were and are a series of 17 highly destructive wildfires that have affected the Los Angeles metropolitan area and surrounding regions. The fires were exacerbated by drought conditions, low humidity, a buildup of vegetation from the previous winter, and hurricane-force Santa Ana winds, which in some places reached 100 miles per hour. As of January 31, 2025, the wildfires have killed at least 29 people, forced more than 200,000 to evacuate, and destroyed or damaged more than 18,000 structures. Most of the damage was from the 2 largest fires, the Palisades fire in Pacific Palisades and the Eden fire in Altadena. They are likely the 3rd and 2nd most destructive fires in California's history, respectively.
I know it sounds morbid, but isn't it a gargantuan irony that Hollywood filmmakers have been destroying the city of Los Angeles in Panavision, on Cinerama, on IMAX screens for decades?
Well, the filmmakers don't make disaster movies because they have a morbid fascination with them. They make them because we have a morbid fascination with disaster.
Okay.
And I'll tell you what, guilty as charged, man, there is a nihilistic streak in me that is going to pay money to see a movie about a comet or a meteor or an asteroid that's going to hit the world and destroy all life. So I think for 2 reasons. Number one, no matter what's going on in my life, it's always going to be better than some scenario that I'm going to be seeing, particularly if it's a disaster movie. And not that it's some kind of schadenfreude or anything like that, but it's just that it does take your mind off any issues that might be going on in one's personal life. But secondly, there's just this fascination with any event that could clear your to-do list or social calendar for the next 10 or 20,000 years, right? There's something fascinating about that.
If memory serves, at one point in the minute, and this is probably years ago, it seemed like your plumbing burst or your pipes burst or something, and you literally had to move out of the house for a period of time and live in a hotel until they could get it all fixed. Am I getting that right?
You are getting that exactly right.
Okay.
You remember that well, yeah. That
was a long time ago.
Yeah.
So you would say, you know what, honey, let's go to a day after tomorrow and watch, New York, the Statue of Liberty blow up. And then this isn't going to seem that bad.
That would have been great timing, and it would have worked, just like you said.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's, see, that's why you're, people always think of you as a musician and a composer, but actually you're a psychologist. So anyways, and John, I can't help but think that a lot of the very talented and very well compensated special effects people involved in the movies we just saw live or recently lived in the Palisades where the fire started. And I doubt the irony is lost upon them.
I think you're absolutely right. I don't think the irony is lost on them one bit. That whole art or life imitating art.
John, our listeners and viewers know that you and I are not experts on either heroic firefighting techniques or fire remediation. My university background is in cinema and media production, and yours is in classical and jazz music composition and performance. So don't we make the perfect pair to talk about apocalyptic fires destroying a major city?
Who better?
What do we need with PhDs? My God.
Yeah. We can spout all kinds of theories.
Any reasonable person, even though, okay, we might not be as experts, but any reasonable person can ask questions when things around them are falling apart. You don't have to possess a PhD to do that, and that's what Scandal Sheet is all about. So I thought we could run through some of the obvious questions almost everybody has about this event and see if what the experts say and what the media is reporting makes sense to us. We'll just act as a proxy for our audience. Is that okay?
Yes, that is more than okay.
Okay. First question. How did the Los Angeles fires start?
Excerpt from an article in the Los Angeles Times from January 30th, 2025.
For the last few weeks, a team of investigators from the U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives has worked out of a command post in the Highlands neighborhood of Pacific Palisades. It's near a popular hiking trail where officials believe the fire began around 10:30 a.m. January 7th. What sparked the Palisades fire? ATF officials declined to provide information about what they suspect started the fire, but sources with knowledge of the inquiry said there are two leading theories. An 8-acre blaze that fire officials thought they had put out on January 1st in the same area reignited and spread because of intense winds, or a new fire was somehow sparked nearby that morning. Either scenario, the sources said, would likely be a human-caused fire because there are no power poles near the point of origin, and trail area is well-traveled. Complex fire investigations in which a cause isn't immediately clear can sometimes take many months to conclude. Typically, investigators will start by finding the area of ignition, which they determine largely through burn patterns. In a massive inferno, such as the Palisades fire, that process alone can take more than a week, experts say. After they find the location of the fire start, investigators will search for any evidence that could point to the source of ignition and any witness statements or videos that can help them piece together how the fire began.
John, that sounds to me like the experts are saying, the hell if we know what started it.
Well, it is under investigation right now, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And the ATF is being very tight-lipped about it.
As one does.
Yeah. And the LA Fire Department is being equally tight. Well, they're being equally tight-lipped about it. So there's not, everybody's kind of scared of a blame game right now, which is going to, hinder a lot of, some information from getting out. But it's probably not a good idea to, get into a blame game and say, hey, if X, Y, and Z had gone differently, like, the fires would have been quashed and no buildings would have been destroyed, no lives would have been lost. I mean, that's just, way too far-fetched.
The second question, John, once the fires started, why couldn't they be put out?
Numerous LA officials and other fire experts have identified key areas why, once the fires were ignited, they were extremely difficult to both contain or extinguish. These areas are: the early fires produced millions of burning embers. Driven by 100 miles per hour Santa Ana winds, these small embers spread the fires rapidly in all directions, unabated. These burning embers ignited new fires for miles around. The extremely high winds made it impossible to operate helicopters and other aircraft that would otherwise drop water and fire repellent to put out the flames. As the fires approached their homes, thousands of city residents got into their cars to escape. As a result, roads became totally traffic jammed. With the fires still coming quickly, people panicked and abandoned their cars, fleeing for their lives. The clogged roads made it impossible for firefighting vehicles to reach the flames they needed to combat until bulldozers could remove the abandoned vehicles from the blocked roads. County water systems were rapidly overwhelmed and quickly ran out of water. Before this event, recent City of Los Angeles budget cuts in the firefighting department decreased both personnel and equipment.
Excerpt from the movie Airplane, 1980, courtesy Paramount Pictures.
I picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Everything went wrong, basically. Everything went wrong.
Yeah. I think they were instructed to abandon their cars. So I kind of vaguely remember that. Like they were, that actually, like it was like the traffic was like a parking lot trying to get out. It was like, when there's a big concert or something like that, and you're just like stuck in traffic. It was like that. And then the fire department like came through in the emergency lanes and with the bullhorns just said, "Get out of your cars now and go." I mean,
I didn't see. So I did watch some videos, which I felt like I wasn't going to be able to navigate around the copyright issues. But what they were saying was, everybody did leave their cars. I didn't see a person with a bullhorn telling them to do it. They just.
I don't know if there was necessarily like a person with a bullhorn either, but I mean, I'm saying that they got the word out to them, like the command to.
Well, what one person was describing in one of these videos, and they had a lot of footage, which maybe I can steal some of the footage, was, here they were leaving, because the fires were approaching, and then they hit the traffic jam, and they're sitting there and they're waiting hour after hour, and they can see the fires are coming closer and closer, and they didn't have to be encouraged to abandon their cars. They just got out and ran. They fled for their lives. And then of course the emergency vehicles couldn't get in, and so they sent in bulldozers, and then you see all these Teslas and Mercedes-Benz and stuff like that. There's just pictures of these bulldozers throwing these cars to make way so a fire truck could get through.
I know that would have been funnier. That would have been funnier if it would have been like Sherman tanks or something, just like crushing them underneath the treads. I don't know why that would have been like funnier, but then they still would have been blocking the roads. So it would have been good. No, I think you're right. I rescind my statement. I think you're right. They just had the notion to it's a self-preservation instinct to get out of their cars and run.
Well, and then the other thing, with the whole wind thing, which isn't man-made, so regardless of how it may have started or the bad judgments that were made by public officials in terms of, what laid the groundwork for the causes that started the fire. Once the fire started, these Santa Ana winds, and the 2 times that I have lived in Southern California, there was a time where there were Santa Ana winds, but they were like, I don't know, 40 miles per hour, not 100 miles per hour. I've never experienced 100-mile-per-hour winds. I haven't actually been in a hurricane or I mean, you and I are from the Midwest. We've seen or been near tornadoes, but I mean, 100 miles per hour is just unfathomable to me. And then all these, cell phone videos that are out there on YouTube with all these burning embers, once even one house starts on fire, you've got these winds blowing these, glowing little bits of whatever everywhere in all directions, just basically starting fires, hundreds of, within a mile or radius of that original house, starting fires all over the place. And you're like, oh, and the first responders, the firefighters are just sitting there going, okay, well, this sucks. And, I don't know what I'm going to do about it.
Yeah, no, you're right. It was the winds were unprecedented.
Yeah. So, those were like a couple of questions I had. What other questions do you have, John?
How did it happen in the first place? It's usually some form of human origin. I guess let's consider the non-human origins, okay? Lightning strike, volcanic activity, or a meteor hitting. Those 3 things. But then everything other than that is some human origin. Even if it's like faulty wiring in a transformer on a power line, still, I don't know, maybe somebody didn't check it, or, the scheduled maintenance wasn't done, or, maybe they, whatever, they didn't catch it. Okay. That's, or, like I said earlier, somebody just says, hey, I wonder what this whole hillside would look like completely ablaze. Seriously,
let's just light it on fire and see what happens and get a postcard or something.
I don't know if I can say this at this point, but they're saying that the Palisades fire was just a rekindling of an earlier fire called the Lockman fire.
Right.
And that was definitely started by fireworks. Somebody was shooting off fireworks.
That is what they're saying. Yeah.
Right. Now, nobody
supposedly put out, but then 6 days later somehow reignited. I'm like, how does that happen? I don't know.
It happens a lot. The real, actual fire investigators, would say that that's not uncommon. But the LA Fire Department was like, oh, no, absolutely not. We had that thing dead, put out. But honestly, like a lot, these huge tree trunks that may have been on fire, and they have embers burning inside of them, like hollow logs with embers burning inside of them. Those can go on for a long time. They can go on more than 6 or 7 days. They can go on for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just they're burning like that. And then let's say some leaves blow in there and pretty much now they're on fire and then they blow back out. And I'm just being hypothetical, but I mean, something like that could easily, it's not a stretch of the imagination.
Excerpt from a recent cell phone video recorded by meteorologist, broadcaster, and self-described science communicator, Mayame. Courtesy PBS Digital Studios, January 2025.
Let's talk about why this happened. The Southern California fires are burning for a pretty simple reason that has nothing to do with AI, water agreements, or LA's spending habits. Extremely strong winds came before seasonal rains. First, let's talk about why this happened. So fall 2022 through spring of 2024 were super wet years for the LA region with deadly rain and costly flooding. It also created a flush of new vegetation. The rain stopped just in time for record-setting summer heat with no meaningful precipitation for 8 months. Typically, December through February is the rainiest season in LA, but so far this year, not so much. 2024 ended as the hottest year on record, and a warmer atmosphere holds more moisture, pulling water out of vegetation quicker. So all of that new growth transformed into receptive fuel for fires by hot, thirsty air. And if you add a spark to the California Santa Ana winds, you have an extremely fast fire, which we're told over and over cannot be put out until the wind dies down. Thousands of people are losing their homes and some even their lives. And these fires will almost certainly make up the most expensive fire event in California in U.S. history.
Mr. Halkley and John, I know this podcast cannot afford the onerous licensing and royalty fees that mainstream media news sources demand for their clips. Allow me to summarize.
Wow! Thanks, Bernice. I appreciate you jumping in.
I do so because I like John, not you.
I don't know how to respond to that, Bernice. I've never been favored.
Sounds like you have a girlfriend.
Yeah. Don't tell Suzanne. I've never been favored by an artificial intelligence before.
It's like the Burt Lancaster character in Field of Dreams. My wife will think I got a girlfriend.
Yeah.
So,
now some people have thought that a woman would have to have artificial intelligence.
Oh, dear me.
Yeah,
dear me.
artificial or no.
Much of what fueled the wildfires cannot be easily undone. Great portions of the Los Angeles residential metro area were laid out in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, during the explosive boom of the motion picture industry in the area. The many historic homes that wealthy celebrities choose to live in now were built prior to modern 21st century building codes. Additionally, the narrow roads that snake throughout the Hollywood Hills, the Palisades, and in many other residential areas are often described as unique and charming and help fuel their immense real estate value. But this 100-plus-year-old infrastructure has proven both destructive and deadly, given the recent facts and evidence. As Ms. May described, had new vegetation, from the previous year's historic rainy season, been cleared in advance, much destruction could have been prevented. Going forward, removing drought-stricken vegetation near residential areas would be a great start. Also, massively upgrading the out-of-date water system would be extremely helpful in firefighting. But weather events, such as the hurricane-level 100 miles per hour Santa Ana winds, cannot be controlled by humans. What scientists have been calling climate change for decades, whether influenced by human activity or not, is a growing reality that we must all live with. It may be the case that very affluent people must simply resign themselves to move away from their mansions in extremely high-risk areas, such as coastlines, mountains, and forests.
So, John, I guess my dream of buying and living in Charlie Chaplin's old mansion in the Hollywood Hills after I make my first billion is probably not going to happen.
Yeah, probably not.
John, this disaster has also opened a new front in the culture wars. The environmental awareness people are claiming that these fires have largely been caused by, or at least influenced by, climate change. Now, at the same time, the anti-woke people are blaming environmentalists for being somehow complicit in making these fires happen in order to prove their point about climate change. So, obviously the war has begun. Ding, ding. It's Rocky 3, 4, 5, 6. Where does this all end? Or does it?
Let's see. Where does it end? I think it ends when there's enough history behind us to see, what the trends have been and what they're going to be. And I think the big trend is everything in the LA basin is just getting progressively hotter year by year. The temperatures is going up. There's an institute at UCLA, the Institute for Environment and Sustainability, and they've been doing a lot of computer models on future predictions of what the temperature is going to be like at 2050 and at 2100, 75 years from now. And worst case scenario.
Well, and of course we'll be there. So we'll be able to play this podcast back and then, go out there with a thermometer and say, yeah, it looks like it's pretty hot out here.
For what credence you want to give computer models. And I understand that they're far from accurate, but the worst case scenario was that the average temperature goes up by 8 degrees Fahrenheit in there. Now, I was in LA in that area, particularly like San Fernando Valley and Pasadena, for 2 years. And
yeah, I remember that. You were trying to you were going to be Hans Zimmer, right?
Right. And
then that motherfucker took your job. Sorry, I didn't mean to say motherfucker.
Let's not go into that. I was robbed. I was
robbed.
And
then you had to work for me, and it's like, oh shit. It could have been Steven Spielberg. It could have been Christopher Nolan, but this douche.
Well, anyway, the last summer I was there, every day for 2 months, it would get up over 100 degrees in the afternoon. Now, I could not imagine
in LA.
Yeah.
God, I do not think of LA as
I was working in Van Nuys, but
okay,
yeah, literally every day for I want to think
what
like
year
2
was
months.
that?
This was 2019,
Okay.
Yeah, the summer of 2019.
I guess maybe it did get hot. I mean, I lived in Palm Springs for a while, and it would like routinely get up to 115 during the day in the summer, but that's in the middle of the desert. I always think of LA as being just a lot more, like 75 degrees every single day or something like that. But
not
when you were there.
Not in the valley.
Not in the valley. Okay. All right.
Yeah. It does. Yeah. If you're like in these places now that are getting all the fires, it's like that, But so it's getting progressively warmer. And my point is that they're going to have to think outside of the box for any solutions. They're going to have to rethink water reclamation and how to put out these fires because
they don't even have any. They don't have enough water to begin with. Remember the old movie Chinatown with Jack Nicholson, directed by that rapist guy, and and that was all about Los Angeles in the 30s or something, not having enough water, and they're still fighting about. I mean, they're fighting over the Colorado River with surrounding states in the Southwest, blah, 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 blah. So it's just like, well, we didn't have any water to begin with. And the last time I was in LA, it was like in a drought, and I was working for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, put us into a modest hotel, but the swimming pool was filled with sand. It was, they didn't even use the water to fill the swimming pool for guests. And so they just filled it with sand so nobody would fall in and hurt themselves.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, wow. Okay. You guys have a water shortage going on here, don't you? So,
yeah. Well, yeah, maybe the answer is like, I don't know. I mean, you're talking to a musician. What do I know? But, maybe desalinization, Like particularly for putting out fires, you probably need like a desalinization plant and then pump the water directly from the Pacific Ocean.
No, that's a good point because does the fire care whether there's salt in the water?
No.
I mean, can't you just put salt water on the fire? You don't need it to be, like, oh my God, we can only use, Crystal Springs spring water on the fire. This is LA. It's got to be Fiji water. The most expensive guys with like little plastic bottles.
Yeah, the fire doesn't care, but the fire trucks care. The pump, all the pumps and stuff like that. And that water, like in the pumper trucks, that water actually goes like through the engines too. So it's like part of the coolant. So you can't put salt water through those things, or you will ruin $1 million piece of equipment. Like almost the first time. And I have to credit my musician friend and Portland firefighter Ben Appel. Okay.
You have a firefighter friend, and you didn't invite him to this podcast?
I did invite him, but he had a rehearsal today, so he couldn't.
Oh, darn it!
I did.
That would have been great
Yeah.
to have him comment on, that is just the craziest. No, I don't know. I'm saying craziest. It's a heroic profession, but dangerous as hell. A lot more dangerous than what. Like you spend most of your time, at a keyboard. Me, I'm in front of a computer editing things. It'd be a lot different running into a house trying to save Fluffy from starting a fire.
Yeah. Well, okay. I'm going to quote him again.
Okay.
He said, if you put out a house fire in Gorham, all right, you have 2 or 3 trucks and they're manned by, 3 to 5 people each. Okay. They put out the fire. It's like, good job. You did what you're supposed to do. With the wildfires, it's different. You have guys digging trenches, creating firewalls. They had,
so
you're
saying what you're saying is like if somebody's house starts on fire because of whatever,
a kitchen fire
a leak or
yeah.
electrical, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's a house. It's burning. The trucks come. They douse it in water. But these wildfires are out of control. They're just going any which way. Wherever the wind is blowing is where they go. And then, like you said, what do you do? How do you stop them? You dig trenches.
Yeah, you create
you
firewall.
build new fires to try to stop them or contain them.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they do that in like a residential area. I know they do that in Northern California. They will actually
in the forest.
Yeah. There aren't a lot of forests in the LA area. There is an LA forest, but you got a lot of palm trees, and those things are flammable as hell.
They are. I saw pictures of them. Yeah, they get rid of the palm trees. They burn like matches. Yeah.
Yeah, but most of it's just grassland or grasses and chaparrals.
It's basically a desert, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
You lived there for 2 years, but it's just like. You're like, well, I guess it was the weather, which is what attracted people there. And, the movie industry before there was reliable electrical lighting. If it's sunny every single day, it's a lot easier to make a film. Let's just build the set outdoors and free lights. So, but, I just always...
It is so hot. It is so hot there.
It is so hot. Okay.
There that I can think you put you slap even 4 or 8 more degrees on that, and it's just like inhospitable to human life. That's to me. It's almost like trying to live on the moon or living in Antarctica or something. I mean, Antarctica would be nicer because you could just bundle up and go outside. No,
that's the thing. It's like you can always put on more clothes, but when it's really, really hot, you can be completely naked and still be miserable.
Yeah, and that's a different conversation. But when I was out there, it was miserable. But the people that I met out there were some of the most loving, gracious, open-armed people. I'd love to get them, move them to a fishing village on the northern coast of Maine, and just have a party with them there. But the first winter they'd be gone. They'd be fuck this. I'm not doing this.
Well, no, I always, every time summer comes, and again, we're in the South here and capital of the Confederacy, and, when it gets to be 100 degrees here in the middle of the summer, I'm like, I'm going to go visit my friend John in Maine. I think that would be a really good idea right now.
It would be a good idea. Still waiting for that to happen, but yeah, Yeah, that's one of the things that we really like about Maine. The only natural disaster that could hit here would probably be like a tsunami or something.
You mean if there was a earthquake offshore,
right?
The water would just come and destroy you. Like I don't know, can't remember which movie it was, but there was a giant tsunami, wasn't there? That basically wiped out the East Coast all the way up to the Appalachian Mountains, something like that.
Yeah, it was. What was that movie? Deep Impact.
Deep Impact.
Yeah, I love that movie. Love that movie. Again, another Comet movie.
Yeah, another Comet movie. While your house was underwater because your pipes exploded or whatever.
Yeah. I think in our case it would be like, there would be this huge landslide on the Azores. What are those islands off the coast of Spain? I know the Azores is one of them, but if there was a huge landslide, that would cause a tsunami that would wipe out the East Coast.
Well, there's a cheery thought.
Yeah.
John, historically, many natural disasters disproportionately affect poor and working class people. So, for example, you and I are from the Tornado Alley Midwest, and people used to say, isn't it weird how tornadoes always look for trailer parks and small houses to attack? But this tragedy was quite different. The fire started in one of the wealthiest real estate districts in the entire world, the Pacific Palisades. So is that a coincidence? Or was this God's retribution or just happenstance?
I don't think you can go down that road.
Which road?
I think the God's retribution road.
Okay.
I think there's kind of like what we touched on. There's such a natural, unpredictable element to these things that they just spread. It's like viruses. They don't look at your checkbook balance or whatever your moral moral ledger sheet is. They just boom.
Right. I mean, there was plenty of celebrities got COVID, very famous people. I remember Tom Hanks and they kept reporting President Trump got COVID. Everybody got COVID, right? At one point, it was like just only the poor people got it. Everybody got it. So,
well, this is a little bit different in that this is like in this particular development.
This one, because this seems like, okay, well, the rich people are getting it. How come the trailer park didn't get anything? They're just sitting there going, hey, this is awesome. Look. Hey, honey, take these binoculars. Look, that mansion is burning down over there.
Well, it's just that's the where it started happened to be in that concentration of wealthier people. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's astonishing, like the number of celebrities who lost their homes, and I everybody hates to see that, especially the city of Los Angeles hates to see that because that's a significant part of your tax base right there,
Well, the other thing, and I didn't put this question in, but what everybody's talking about is that this is probably going to, because of the value of the tens of thousands of homes that were destroyed, it's probably going to destroy the insurance industry, or a big part of it. They're not going to be able to do the payouts at this scale. Right. So goodbye State Farm, goodbye Allstate, goodbye Progressive,
Mm-hmm. If only something like that would happen to the health insurance industry. Like that's exactly what we need to happen. I mean, that's like the biggest.
You mean everybody needs to die? Everybody has to get cancer simultaneously?
No.
Cancer?
That was no. Somehow the system needs to be replaced, but that's a whole nother.
Right. So, John, here's my last question. I think I watched too many medieval movies where people accused of witchcraft or heresy are burned at the stake, as a kid. So to me, a fire, like a terrible fire like this, seems a lot scarier to me than other kinds of natural disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, floods, etc. But what about you?
Well, I think what's scary is when you're going through an earthquake or a tornado or a hurricane, and the only thing on your mind is it going to get worse? Like where I'm at right now, what I'm experiencing at this moment, is it going to get worse or is it going to subside? And it's that uncertainty. That's the truly scary part. I was in an earthquake out there, but it was a very mild one. But while it was going on, I was thinking, is it going to get worse? Is this going to be the big one? So it was just that anxiety of wondering, how long is it going to last?
Well, and they have so many little earthquakes in Southern California, and people that have been living there, their whole lives or for decades or whatever, kind of just take them for granted. But I guess I think, since again, you and I are from the Midwest, and I remember as being a little kid, so the siren, there'd be in the town of Springfield, Illinois, there'd be the, and everybody was supposed to go downstairs in their basement and take your little AM, FM little radio and listen for instructions, and just wait for the thing to pass and hope that your house isn't the one that gets hit. But you're just sitting there in the basement, in terror, waiting, to see what's going to happen. Where's the tornado going to go? Because it can, as tornadoes are weird. I mean, they'll hit one house and leave the one right next to it standing, So
right.
Just, but you're just like, oh, mommy. So, but I mean, is that kind of what you're saying? It's like you're just the absolute fear of not knowing, just trying to get through the next few minutes or whatever.
Yeah. That's a good example.
Yeah.
So in other words, to address your question,
okay,
it's not that fires seem scarier to me, but what's scary to me is that aspect of all of these experiences. That aspect of just not knowing if you're in the clear or not.
Well, it's I guess it's sort of like an existential terror that it's not like having a duel with someone or doing something deliberately dangerous, like your friend the firefighter that actually has to walk into a house that is on fire. Okay, he's taking a risk, but he intellectually knows what he's doing, and obviously he's had training and everything else. But to have something hit you like this, again, it is like that Meteor movie that you were talking about, where it just comes out of nowhere and just can land on you at any time. Nothing you can do about it. Really can't run, really can't hide. You can try, but yeah, existential terror.
Mm-hmm.
So, John, we always put all your links in the liner notes of this episode, but is there anything you want to plug in particular?
Well, I'll tell you what, if anybody wants to venture and check out my YouTube music channel, there's a probability that you might find something on there that you don't hate,
Well, you are a tireless self-promoter, John.
I'm just saying.
You need a little more Sylvester Stallone in you, I think. But
There's a lot of variety on there. Although there's no gangsta rap or Swedish death metal. I haven't been able to explore those genres yet.
That's true. Anybody who loves music is going to love your YouTube channel and your SoundCloud channel and everything else. You've got some great stuff in there. So,
okay, thanks.
Okay, so let's see. Well, thank you again for joining us, John. Ladies and gentlemen, John Hoekstra.
Thank you so much. Thank you. My pleasure.
Please follow or subscribe to Scandal Sheet on your favorite pod platform. And share it with all your friends. We'd also love it if you'd leave us a shameless, over-the-top rave review on Apple Podcasts especially. That helps us build audience. And we would really appreciate it if you could support us on Patreon, where you can enjoy premium bonus content for less than the price of a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Just go to patreon.com/scandalsheet. Also, we want to hear from you. You can reach us online at Facebook or X, formerly Twitter, LinkedIn, or TikTok. Or just send us an email to scandalsheetpod@gmail.com. See you next time on Scandal Sheet!
Copyright 2024. Thad Halsley Media. All rights reserved.